But getting back to the great George Galloway for a minute, he recently lost his seat in Parliament for the town of Rochdale after having secured it just a few months earlier when the MP, Tony Lloyd, Labour Party MP, passed away. But his by-election victory caused all sorts of fantastic shockwaves throughout the British political and media establishment. Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of England, I stole that phrase from Mr. Galloway, held an emergency address to the nation talking about the end of democracy.
In recent weeks and months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality. What started as protests on our streets has descended into intimidation, threats, and planned acts of violence. Jewish children fearful to wear their school uniform lest it reveal their identity. Muslim women abused in the street for the actions of a terrorist group they have no connection with. And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP. Yes, you can march and protest with passion. You can demand the protection of civilian life. But no, you cannot call for violent jihad. You can freely criticize the actions of this government, or indeed any government. That is a fundamental democratic right. But no, you cannot use that as an excuse to call for the eradication of a state or any kind of hatred or anti-Semitism. This week, I've met with senior police officers and made clear it is the public's expectation that they will not merely manage these protests, but police them. And I say this to the police: we will back you when you take action.
And in response to this, some plank from Sky News caught up with Mr. Galloway the night after the election and proceeded to accost him and shame him for running such a divisive campaign. The response, however, for Mr. Galloway has to go down as one of my favourite little audio snippets of the last God knows how long. I've lost count of how many times I've listened to this. It's brilliant on a multitude of levels and deeply inspiring. Winston, do me a favour.
Yes?
Play the whole thing. I'm not going to interrupt it. I'm not going to break it down. I'll come back after the fact and talk about why I'm so excited about this particular clip. But just let's play the whole thing for the people.
As you wish.
I'm standing here at George Galloway's campaign headquarters. George Galloway, did you just watch the Prime Minister's speech?
I didn't watch it, but I understood the first part of it related to the Rochdale by-election.
The Prime Minister has just said that the election of you to Parliament is beyond horrifying. What do you say to that?
Well, I can understand how disappointed he is about the by-election. The Conservative Party, which is the government of the country, was crushed, not just by me, but by an independent candidate that no one had ever heard of before outside of Rochdale. So it was a disastrous night for the Conservatives and a disastrous night for Labour. I got more votes than Labour and the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats and the Reform Party put together, which adds up to a pretty crushing rejection of the two-party system. So I understand why he's alarmed.
I want you to address some of the specifics that the Prime Minister said about you this evening. He said that you backed Hezbollah. Is that true?
I don't know what that means, backed Hezbollah. I oppose Israel's occupation of Lebanon, and I respect the right of people in occupied territory to resist their occupier. And I've done so since Hezbollah was formed and Israel occupied much of Lebanon, right up to the Litani River, regularly bombing Beirut and so on. So I'm not sure what business that is of his, because you see,
Hezbollah are a terrorist organisation.
Actually, they're part of the government of Lebanon, a country with which we have sovereign diplomatic relations. I had this debate with Sky's Anna Botting in 2006. It's quite an epic clip. You should watch it. More than 100 million people have. They said all these things about me in the by-election. And in the by-election, It was them that got crushed in the democratic process. So I'm not sure why he would reheat it now.
The Prime Minister is saying
talk
that
as if
you are...
this is God. We're talking about little Rishi Sunak in the fag end of his prime ministership. Don't talk to me as if he's come down from the mount with tablets of stone. The things that he says are somehow meant to awe me. They may awe you, they don't awe me.
A lot of people have just watched what the Prime Minister said. This is your opportunity to respond to what he said.
Well,
he says that there are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. He is implying you are a divisive figure. You have run an election campaign that has tried to appeal, particularly, not entirely, to one section of the community.
Who won the election? Me or Rishi Sunak? I've got the democratic mandate here, not Rishi Sunak. He didn't even come second. He was lucky to come third. So don't put to me statements made by Rishi Sunak as if I'm supposed to be impressed by them. He don't impress me much.
We at Sky have spent some time today on the streets of Rochdale, and there are people who say that they feel intimidated by people like you and the people that have supported you.
I have just
and they have pointed out that you have concentrated your campaign on foreign affairs, and they worry that Rochdale will not be the winner.
That's my answer to you. I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people in the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Why are there people on the streets worried?
There may be people who didn't vote for me who are worried, but the majority, the thumping majority, voted for me. I've got the mandate, and I'm going to the House of Commons with it.
And it's a mandate, you think, to do what? Because there are people that listen to what you say about whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening slogans.
We had this conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's statement...
Don't keep telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
Do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister. And guess what? Guess what? Millions and millions and millions of people in this country despise the Prime Minister. I don't respect the Prime Minister at all.
What are you planning to do next week when you arrive in Parliament?
Well, I'm meeting the Speaker on Monday morning, and then I'll be introduced and sworn in. I'll be escorted by the Right Honourable David Davis MP, former Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party. I don't know why he would do that if he thought I was the kind of man you're clearly implying that I am. David Davis is one of the great parliamentarians of today and this age. And I'll be taking my seat in the House of Commons and speaking for the people of Rochdale. That's what I was elected to do.
And what is your message also to Keir Starmer?
My message to Keir Starmer is that the skids are under you in scores of Labour seats up and down the country, because you've lost the trust, you've lost the confidence of millions of your traditional loyal voters.
Now, we have now had an election where two of the candidates have alleged intimidation. The Prime Minister referenced that intimidation in his address on the steps of...
to the Prime Minister as if that's supposed to impress me. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister is a rather diminutive, diminished and degraded politician. He made a party political statement. I don't care about Rishi Sunak's attitude. What I care about is that the returning officer, a man of unimpeachable integrity, I'm sure you'll agree, declared it a free and fair election, and me as the winner, and Rishi Sunak as one of the crushed two big parties in the state.
So why are two candidates?
Keep repeating the same questions to me, because I have other people to talk to. So let's make this the last one, shall we?
We got a party to deal with.
Allegations of intimidation, allegations that your supporters intimidated other candidates.
Five times you've said that. The returning officer declared it last night. You were there, as a free and fair election, and me as the winner.
And the Electoral Commission today have said that they're going to look and talk to the parties.
Have to just suck it up. I won the election.
George Galloway, thank you very much indeed. That was George Galloway with his supporters now shouting bye-bye, live on Sky News with his first reaction to the address by the Prime Minister. You can see some of the reaction to the way that George Galloway has responded to the Prime Minister's speech, to that extraordinary Friday night address on the steps of Downing Street. And you can see some of the atmosphere that I think the people of Rochdale have experienced themselves during this by-election over the last few days.
Whistle politics from our establishment politicians.
And you can see the febrile atmosphere and the anger in this room about an hour before a rally, a victory party for George Galloway's election is due to start. And you can hear the raw emotion addressed at other politicians and at others that criticise them. I think you've got in this room a flavour of the politics right now in Rochdale that this constituency has been witnessing for the last few weeks. This will, I think this, and you can see the way. And that, I think, sums up some of the campaigning that we have seen in Rochdale over the last few weeks.
So what's so thrilling to me about such a thing as this is that when the reporter expects Galloway to be somewhat humbled by the reprimand of the Prime Minister, the Little Rishi Sunak, and when asked if he doesn't respect the Prime Minister, Galloway responds, "Respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister." It's a liberating sentiment because it's coming from a man who knows exactly who he's dealing with. This is not a person to be taken seriously. This is a weasel, a puppetition, a tool of the corporate superstate, a willing servant of the ruling degenerates who's been stationed at number 10 Downing Street to betray the people on behalf of the ruling class, to gaslight the people, to bewilder the people, to perpetuate the illusion that Britain is a democracy and that Sunak is anything more than he is, a weaselly little toady. So when Galloway says, "Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister," this reflects how the real people of England think about this fucking muppet. He's so spineless that he has an absolute meltdown at the fact that George Galloway won a very obscure seat in the north of England somewhere. To him, this terrorised every notion he has about the sanctity of British democracy, meaning that the middle managers can keep control of the masses on behalf of the degenerates. The whole thing gets fucked with when somebody gets into the system that doesn't respect the process, that is more powerful, more educated, more incisive than these little worms, who ties them into knots with his reason and clarity and education. Galloway's a force of nature. We need more George Galloways in the world. But more importantly than that, we need to foster a healthy contempt for these middle managers, because they're not worthy of our respect. They've betrayed us, they lie to us, and they gaslight us. And believe me, when enough of them feel the pressure, exactly like the Canadian senators did, they will scurry back under the floorboards from whence they came. Now, not everybody can slice and dice these mental midgets into little pieces of quivering gelatinous flesh, festering on the floorboards, quaking with reactionary panic. But at the very least, it is imperative that you do not regard them with any level of respect. And I don't mean just be openly obnoxious. Galloway can get away with it because he's outwitting them. He's demonstrating that he's more insightful and more clever than they are. So I'm not advocating just being brazenly obnoxious, because that has negative consequences. But don't hold any respect for them. Know what they are. and don't let them gaslight you.
This is Winston the Homicidal Computer, and you've been listening to an excerpt of the Velvet Buzzsaw on Cinephobia Radio. For the complete episode, visit the website at www.cinephobia-radio.com. So until next time, vidi well my little droogies. Vidi well.